Renner. Do you prefer Mike or Michael?
Yeah, Mike's
Okay, Mike. Mike. And the interviewer is Mike McGregor from the Grand Valley State University's Veterans History Project. To start with, Mike, when and where were you born?
I was born in Sigourney, Iowa, October 1st, 1950. And it's in Keokuk County, a little town of like 2,500 people.
Okay. And what did your parents do?
Oh, my dad, I held a couple jobs, janitor and mechanic, and my mom cleaned houses and stuff like that.
Okay. And did you grow up the whole time in Sigourney,
Yeah.
Iowa?
Yeah,
Okay.
I graduated 1968 in May, and I turned 18 then in October. So
Okay.
I got out when I was 17. I went in earlier, and then
Okay.
I worked around home, and I don't know, felt like doing something. So I went uptown. The recruiter was uptown, so I asked him if he wanted another guy, and he said it'd be all right. So I enlisted, and he put me down as a 2-year RA.
Okay. Well, okay. But in high school, were you involved in any athletics, or did you work?
Played
full-time?
football.
Football?
Yeah, and had a job at the grocery store, carry-out boy,
Okay.
which it kept me in gas money, you know.
Were there any other children in the family?
Yeah, I got 4 sisters and a brother.
Okay. And
I got
of the 6, where are you in the pecking order?
2 older sisters, an older brother than me, and then 2 younger sisters.
So you were kind of in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Was your father a veteran?
Yeah, he was in the Coast Guard in World War II.
Okay.
He was in the Philippine Islands. He was in the Battle of Leyte Gulf. I remember him telling me about that. And he was on 2 ships that at different times was sunk, and he got he called it a 30-day survivor's leave to come home to Sigourney, and my mom and oldest sister were home, so he got some time off there. But
Okay.
you know, the ship had to sink before they.
So, was he from Iowa?
Burlington, Iowa.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it always surprises me that you read stories about folks that are admirals in
Yeah.
the Navy, and they grew up in Wyoming or Denver
Yeah, away from the water.
or Iowa. Yeah, that's good there. Okay, so you got out of school. What did you know about the Vietnam War while you were in high school? Did you pay much attention to the news?
Oh yeah, you couldn't get away from it. And there was a really nice guy from Sigourney got killed over there, and he was a couple years older than me. And in fact, his sister and I graduated together. And it was everywhere. You couldn't turn the TV. The riots in '68 at that Democratic convention in Chicago. I seen that on TV one night. I thought, wow, what's going on here? Everything was just so crazy. And it just was. There's a lot of people from Sigourney went to Nam. A lot of them.
Okay. So were a lot of the kids that you knew and grew up with,
Oh,
maybe
yeah.
a couple years older, they're
Yeah,
getting drafted,
yeah.
and did you feel you were going to get drafted?
No, I just wanted to go. I knew I wasn't going to get drafted for quite a while, so I just decided to go. I think one time our yearbook, I figured up there's 14 of us in my class that was either in Vietnam or off the coast of it.
Out of how big of a class?
99.
And it's 14 boys out of basically 50, probably it's half and half,
Yeah.
half girls, half boys, so 14 out of 50.
Yep.
Wow. So you knew you were going to get drafted, but it was going to be a period of time,
Yeah.
so you decided that you wanted to enlist.
Yep, let's go.
You stated you enlisted in the Army for a 2-year
Yeah,
enlistment.
they had a 2-year enlistment, so I took that.
Were you able to pick your MOS?
Well, I
And
started
enlisting?
to, but it got changed halfway through, so it didn't matter. I enlisted in the infantry, and I took infantry training down at Fort Polk, Louisiana. And then upon graduation, instead of going to South Fort, instead of going to North Fort, which was Tigerland, they sent me and several others to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, as an artillery.
Okay, I'll walk you through that a little later. Okay, so you enlisted, and how long did you have at home before you had to report for duty? Or
I don't know, maybe a week. or so.
And you left your hometown, where did you go to then?
Des Moines, I got on the bus. They still ran buses back then. I got on the bus, and they're in Sigourney, and we had every stop between Sigourney and Des Moines to pick up somebody, you know, and finally got to, it was called Fort Des Moines AFI station, and we processed through there and passed the physical and everything. And that night we got on a airplane and headed down to Fort Polk, Louisiana.
As you were processing in Des Moines, there were individuals like you who enlisted. Were there draftees?
Oh yes, there's a lot of draftees. Yeah.
During that processing, did you notice anybody trying to get out of it?
No, but I noticed two cats. They was going in the Navy together, and this one was talking to the other and says, "You'll love it. We'll really like it. Just hang in there. Let's go." So they took their physical. The one that was pushing the other and got rejected, and the other one went. And they was sitting at the table, and he says, "Well, I'll tell everybody at home, blah, blah, blah." And this guy was sick.
Oh.
Because he didn't want to go. He just went, because his buddy, but he went. But he went in the Navy.
So they thought they enlisted on the buddy
On the buddy program, yeah.
And one buddy didn't make it.
That's quite a buddy. Take you to Des Moines and...
Now, when you process through what did that involve? Just the physical, or what?
Yeah, basically just the physical. I think you took all your clothes off but your skivvies and walked around on a cold floor with footprints going yellow line or red line or blue line. But
And when was it that when was it that you reported? That was in June, right?
yeah, let's see, the 16th, I think, well, we left the same day. I mean, that night we left. We got on Braniff Airline and flew to Fort Polk, and we got in about 2:30 in the morning. Got off the airplane.
At that center, when you're processing, were any of the draftees sent to services other than the Army that you recall?
Oh yeah, all the branches was up there in Des Moines. They was all up there, and there's guys lined up. Actually, there's a lot of people there. Of course, the Navy and Marine Corps and the Air Force, that was all enlistments. And the Army at that time was the only one.
Okay, because at some point, I know when I got drafted in '66, the Marines were also drafting.
Yes, that happened the day.
So,
Yes.
I didn't know if did they select any? Did
They
they solicit volunteers or select
1,
anybody?
2, 3, 4, 5 was all sitting in a row. About 18 of us in a row. That Marine come in, counted off 5. You're up. You're with him. 2 years in the Marine Corps.
Okay, so the Marines were still drafting
Yep,
then.
they did that day.
Okay, so okay, you got on just one day.
Yeah.
That night you get on a plane and you go down to Fort Polk. And what time did you arrive at Fort Polk?
I think 2:30 in the morning.
Okay, so you got there at 2:30. Then describe your reception at Fort
Got
Polk.
off the airplane and there was a guy screaming at us to form up and do a police call. And I didn't know what a police call was, and that was where you line up and you go through an area and you pick up cigarette butts or anything that's laying on the grass that's not supposed to be there. You put it in a trash can. So we did that, and it wasn't very good marching, but we marched into this building and just started processing. I forget now what all we did, but and then later the sun come up, then we started doing stuff, and then was put in a company to take your basic.
Were you in that area just for one day, or?
Yeah, I never made it back to that place ever again.
Okay, so you were assigned to a basic training company, and
Yep.
what was the makeup or the composition of your basic training company?
We had 5 platoons, and they went by alphabetical order. So Renner, I was in the 4th platoon, and I think there was maybe 20, 25 in the platoon. I'm not sure, but then the 5th platoon was all Texans, so they brought in a whole platoon of guys from Texas, and we just started off our...
So you had the platoon of Texans, you and a few guys from Iowa.
Yeah.
And where were the other troops from?
I don't know. See, when I got in the 4th platoon, my school teacher the year before got drafted, and he was in the 3rd platoon. And so we talked like when we was marching and would see each other. But I didn't get, no one was allowed to go to 3rd platoon or 2nd platoon and talk to anybody. You stayed in 4th platoon.
Oh, so your school teacher was also in your basic
Yeah, he got
training
drafted,
company?
yeah. He was like 28 years old when he got drafted.
Wow.
One year, I mean, in '68, he was teaching me how to type, and then the next summer we was taking
Basic
basic
training
training together. Yeah.
Jeez, what a,
And he went to Nam too, and he made it back okay.
oh, good, good. So, okay, what was the racial composition of your platoon?
The racial?
Yeah,
Oh, it was, I think maybe a few more whites than blacks, a couple of Mexicans.
okay. So you had a pretty,
It was pretty close.
pretty
Yeah.
good mix of,
Yeah.
of people. Now, were they all enlistees and draftees?
I think
or
most of them
were
were
many of them
draftees.
also National Guard and reservists going through their training?
Yeah, they was mostly draftees, because when you went to the chow line, as soon as you got in the chow line, you took your hat off and you said US, RA, NG.
Right.
US meaning drafted, RA like me. I'd sound off RA, and the guys behind me and in front of me would say nasty things. But very few RAs in 4th platoon, mostly US's.
Mostly draftees.
Yeah.
Okay. And how would you describe the morale of the guys in the platoon?
It was great. I mean, everybody was just, it was just, I thought basic was great. I really did.
And what did your basic, how long did your basic training
8
last?
weeks.
8 weeks. And
Yeah.
what did it consist of?
You learned how to fire a weapon, tear that weapon apart. You learned bayonet drill, a lot of calisthenics. I think I pushed Fort Polk, Louisiana away. They'd drop you for 50 push-ups, you know, you just push up, push up, push up. I liked basic training, I really did. I thought it was great.
Did you find any part of it particularly difficult for you?
No, not really. It wasn't easy, but it wasn't real difficult either.
Okay.
There's a little pressure on you for, what's that test they give you? That scores that tells, I don't know, where you run through all the cows and everything.
Oh, your PE test.
Yeah, that was, you know, I wanted to score high. I also wanted to score high with the M14, but I didn't get the expert badge. I got the sharpshooter badge. And I really wanted the expert badge.
And what kind of weapon did you train on?
Trained on M14, and then one Saturday about, I think it was our 5th or 6th week, they called us out by name, and we marched down to the armory and drawed a M16 out and practiced with that. And we pretty much know who was going to Nam when that happened.
Okay. Did you have to qualify with the M16, or was this
Yes,
a
it was
familiarization course?
They had another qualification, and I got sharpshooter with that too.
Did many of the trainees in your platoon, did they have problems with the discipline?
One guy's name was Stapleton. His wife, he was having marital problems, and he went AWOL in basic, and they caught him, of course. I mean, where would you go? And he had to go to the brig for that. I felt kind of sorry for him. You know, I mean, I didn't even have a girlfriend, well, I'm a wife, but he decided to go AWOL, and he shouldn't have done that.
Were all the troops with you, were they able to keep up physically, or were some in lesser shape than others?
Some were in lesser shape, and they had a place called the Fat Farm, and they sent about 5 guys out of 4th platoon to the Fat Farm, along with so many out of the other platoons that couldn't keep up in your daily drills. And when they come back from the Fat Farm, I think it was a 2-week deal, boy, they had really skimmed the weight off. It was the best thing for them.
So they came back to your...
Yep, they came back
the same training cycle rather than being
Yep,
recycled?
Yep, they came back in the
Okay.
same training cycle.
Okay, so were many of your drill instructors Vietnam veterans at that time?
Well, I didn't know the ribbons. I didn't know how you told who was in Nam and who wasn't, but they was real serious. They didn't want anybody screwing around, you know, even practice throwing hand grenades. They was real serious of what they did. and that teach you to stay alive, actually. They all could have been non-vets, as far as I knew.
And was any of your training specifically keyed to Vietnam?
Well, when we went through, what's that called? It was a village up on the South Fort. Oh, I used to have it on the tip of the tongue. It was a Vietnamese village, mock village, yeah.
Right. Okay.
And we went through that and trained in that and seen how booby traps were set up, you know,
And you did all that in basic training?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, your 8 weeks of basic training, you're up. You get, then at that time, did they assign you an MOS or?
Yes, the very last day when we graduated, the drill sergeant of 4th Platoon read off where everybody was going and what your MOS was. And mine and several others was 13 Alpha. I forget what the armor MOS was, but there was a lot of guys going to armor. And 11 Bush, actually there's very few guys out of 4th Platoon went to 11 Bush.
Okay, so.
Because the reason they said was there was a big, they needed a lot of artillery and armor guys at that time.
Okay. And when did you graduate from basic?
Oh, I don't know, August something. I
Middle
don't know
about
for
the,
sure,
well, you
yeah.
went in, reported June 16th, so it'd probably be the middle.
8
or
weeks
latter
after
part
that,
of, August, okay. So what was your feelings being assigned to the artillery?
Well, I asked my DI and I permission to go to the captain, you know, and he said, no, he's too busy today. You can take it up at your next duty station. So I'm being dumb. I thought, okay. So I got on a bus, graduated, got on a bus and rode to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and I got off the bus and went down to the, where the first sergeant stays. Is that the exec? No, it's
The orderly room? Or?
yeah, the orderly room or someplace like that. And told him that the first sergeant was in there, and of course I didn't know a lot of military etiquette, but I presented myself and all this and asked him, and he said, "Don't worry about it. You ain't going. You're here, so like it or lump it."
So you wanted to go infantry?
Yeah, I still wanted to get that because that's what I wanted to do, and I thought the enlistment guaranteed me that, but it didn't.
Why did you want infantry?
My buddies was in it at home.
Okay. So you had some knowledge of what it was about? And
Oh yeah.
You wanted to.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you took a bus from there, you didn't have any leave, you take a
Right.
bus from Polk to Fort Sill. What time did you get into Fort Sill? Was it?
And I don't know, we left in the morning at Fort Polk, so it might have been getting close to dark. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know how far it is from Fort Polk to Sill.
And what was your reception at Fort Sill?
Well, there's a guy yelling at us to get in this barracks and take a bunk, and he'd deal with us in the morning. So that's about basically what we done.
So then what happened in the morning?
We fell out in formation. They told us which company we was going to be in, just about like basic, you know. And I was assigned to Echo 6-1, and that's where they showed me where Echo 6-1 company area was, and that's where I went.
Okay, and describe your training there in AIT then.
Actually, we trained on a 105 split trail. And when I got to Nam, I got on a 155 split trail. They're totally different. And I had one day in basic, or AIT on a 155, then I didn't get to fire it. You know, I was just standing in line listening to the instructor talk. I had no idea how this puppy worked, you know. And the training was, I had more fun in basic than I did AIT, really.
So what did all the training consist of then?
I know we'd load up in a truck and drag a howitzer out to some place and get it ready to fire, and you might fire one round and then close it up and take it back home, you know. So it just wasn't too much training to it. We did calisthenics and all that, but you know, we didn't do anything with the rifles
Did they train you on all the various positions on the gun? Did you train as like gunner, assistant gunner, ammo handler, loader?
They talk to you. This is the gunner. This is what he does. But you never trained. You never got to look through the sight or do a mission or
They
nothing.
didn't do that,
No.
right?
Uh-uh.
Was there much classroom training involved?
Yeah, a lot of boring classroom.
And what were some of those subjects that you covered?
Oh, I don't know, but the one that stayed with me the most was we went in and it was air conditioned and it was nice set in there, nice and cool. And over the loudspeaker, they had the sound of an AK-47 going off. And then the DI that was running it says, "You'll never forget that once you hear it." And so we listened to that several times, and just to get you an idea of what's going to go on. And then when it really happened, he was right. You don't forget that sound.
Mm-hmm.
But
So your classroom training, did you feel that was relevant at all to operating the howitzer? Or?
oh no, I thought I'm just going to hang in here till I graduate, you know, because I thought maybe still I could do something to get back to what I originally wanted, but I guess I just fooled myself. So
Okay.
graduation came. See, I celebrated my October 1st. I think we graduated the 10th of October, and the 1st was my birthday, and so we made graduation and my birthday a big party, and then got out, and I turned 19 then, and went home on leave for, I don't know, 20 some days, and then left for Nam.
Did you have, back at Fort Sill, did you have more freedom than you did in basic training?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So-
It was pretty lax, you know. Guys got in trouble because it was too lax.
How so? How was it lax?
Well, the other guys would go out and get really wasted on beer, you know, and then come back and come back to the company area and get caught, you know, and then the first sergeant gets all ticked off. But there was fear at Fort Polk, and there wasn't at Fort Sill.
Okay, so could you leave the
Yeah, towards
the battery area and that kind of
Yeah,
thing?
about the 6th week, I think they give you a weekend pass and stuff like that.
But even before that, could you go about the base?
Yes, you could.
After training and
Yeah,
that? Okay.
yeah. And they had little shacks that sold beer
Mm-hmm.
and benches you could sit on, you know.
I know it very well.
Yeah, you know, them things. And the gut wagon, you could catch the gut
Yeah.
wagon and.
Yeah,
But,
so it was basically a day of training, and then the night you were
Yeah, pretty much free, yeah.
pretty much free, and then you just do that over
Yeah.
again. Okay, so when did you get your orders for Vietnam?
Right about Steve Renner, and he was going airborne after AIT. Me and him him and I went down to the first sergeant's shack. I was going to volunteer for Nam, and the guy, was a corporal, was working in there, and he says, "You don't need to volunteer. You guys are going anyway."
Okay.
You know, so I said, "All right."
Well, out of your AIT training battery, now that you're in the artillery, you're not
Yeah,
companies,
right.
Yeah. How many guys got orders for now?
All was in 4th platoon, just about everybody.
Okay. So you got your orders, you graduated, you went home. How much of a leave did you have?
I think it was 23 or 24 days.
Before you went home, did they have any other specialized Vietnam training for you that you had to go through?
No, nothing like the Arvin village that we went through
Okay.
in basic.
Okay, so you went home for a few 20-some days, and then where did you have to report?
I had to took an airplane from Des Moines to Fort Lewis, Washington.
Okay.
Or no, not Fort Lewis. It was Oakland,
Oakland,
California.
Oakland Repo Depot.
Yep.
And during your travels, during your travel home or your travel out to Fort Lewis, did you encounter any anti-war protesters or anything?
I didn't recognize them.
Okay. So you had no.
I mean,
there was no issue.
no, not that I knew of, but.
Okay.
You know, I didn't recognize them when I got back home until a guy pointed them out to me.
Okay.
You know, I wasn't thinking like that. I think, why would anybody want to hassle a guy in uniform? You know, that's like getting a kiss of death.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't understand these hippies and all that shit that they do. I just didn't understand it. You know, they thought they had a tough day. They should have been in Nam one day.
Amen. Yeah.
That was a tough day.
Okay. Now, when you got your orders for Vietnam, did you get orders for a specific unit,
No.
or just to report? You're going to report to a replacement depot someplace.
Yep.
And how did you get to Vietnam then?
Well, we stayed there for 3 days and watched war flicks. Just milled around, got in jungle fatigues, put all of our clothes, our Class A's in a box and sent them home. Wore jungle fatigues. Sat around, meet manifest, the ones that called off. If you didn't make this trip, you sat around. Once in a while, you got pulled out for a detail to do something, and it was getting kind of boring just sitting there. And then they called my name and a couple other guys I'd taken training with, and so we loaded up and we was on our way.
Okay, and did you fly?
Yeah,
to
you
Vietnam?
bet.
And do you remember what the route was?
We stopped in Hawaii, and I thought, this is going to be something. We unloaded for some reason, stood at attention on the airstrip, and got back on the airplane, took off again. So that was Hawaii. And then I think that was our only place we stopped. Then we landed at Long Binh,
No,
Benoit Long Binh,
Yeah.
90th Replacement Center is where I
Okay.
came in the country.
So when you first got off the plane, what was your first impression of Vietnam?
It was hot. And this was November 6th.
Okay, so you
And
didn't
smelly. You know, you could, and I didn't realize what it was, but there was barrels cut in half burning. And I just greener than my fatigues. I didn't know what everything was and found out later what it was. But it just stunk. And everybody was in a hurry. And I seen a kid that, a little kid about, I don't know, 6 or 7, and has his leg blowed off. A little Vietnamese kid. And he was using a tree limb that was fashioned, kind of, and he's using that for a crutch. I thought, what in the hell is this? You know?
Did you have some second thoughts then?
No,
about saying,
never
why
said-
am I coming here?
No, sir. Nope. I was ready to go.
Okay. So, how were you handled in the replacement depot there?
We went someplace, I forget where it was, and they got you on detail. I had to personally cut elephant grass with a machete for quite a while that day, and then had to go burn some stuff in the barrels. And then about, I think it was 3 days at the reception center, and then they called my name for manifest for the 101st Airborne Division. And me and my buddy took off and went up to, I think it was Phu Bai, and they had I think it was called a search. Screaming Eagle Replacement Training Center. We took search training, and upon graduation, me and him split. I've never seen him since then.
What did search training consist of?
How to identify the enemy, how to identify booby traps, how to try to keep you alive while you're here, guard duty at night, live ammo. Don't be afraid to call on the radio if you hear something, see something. It was there was no screwing around. The black hats, they ruled. They was tough sons of guns. I had a lot of respect for them.
And when you say black hats, what?
They wore a black baseball cap with a Screaming Eagle right on the front of it. Everybody else wore utility caps.
Okay.
But the black hats were in charge of everybody, officers or anybody.
Because I know we had black hats assigned to our unit much earlier, and those were airborne pathfinders. And
Well, these might have been too,
Yeah.
but I didn't know what a Pathfinder was at that time.
Yeah. Okay.
You know.
Okay. So you got through that training. It's being taken very seriously now.
Oh, yes.
And
Yeah.
did you feel that was helpful training
Oh,
for you
yeah.
for the rest of your tour? Okay.
Well, I mean, it was all such a rush. You wanted to get it all in, and then I was hoping you didn't forget nothing, but it was coming so fast at you, you knew you were going to forget something. But and I left there, and they called out I was supposed to go to 2nd 11th, and that was at Camp Eagle. So I think I got in the back of a deuce and a half and went on up to Camp Eagle and reported in to,
So you originally went to Camp Evans, right?
no, I don't
I'm
think
sorry.
so. No, from
okay.
Fubai.
Oh, Fubai, I'm sorry, okay.
Yeah.
From Fubai, and
Camp
then you went to
Eagle.
Camp Eagle.
And the guns were still in battery there. And I think we stayed maybe 2 days and then we left for a fire base called Rockason. And we was on there till February of
Now,
70.
you're assigned to a 155 split
Yep.
trail howitzer unit.
Yep.
And when you got to the battery, how were you received?
Just another FNG, you know, nothing special about this guy.
Okay. What did the battery consist of?
6 155s. Guys was an FDC, fire direction control, and had a captain and a lieutenant, and the chief of smoke. He was usually an E7, and you know your gunners, assistant gunners.
So you had six
Six
guns.
men, yeah.
6 guns, and what was the manning for each gun?
6 guys per gun is all we ever had. Gunner, assistant gunner, RTO, which when you wasn't RTO and you was fusing ammo, 2 traymen and a rammer, but everybody could do everybody's job except a lot of guys couldn't gun or assistant gun.
Now, FDC would call down firing data.
Yeah,
to
they'd
the
call
gun,
down for fire
and
mission.
Would that, how would that be done? Was that done on a field telephone? On
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just the RTO, the radio was always manned by somebody.
Was it a radio or just a handset, a telephone mic?
Well, it had a telephone handset, but
Yeah.
it was about like this long, you know, and it OD in color and kept it in an ammo box so it didn't get wet, you know, and plastic over the receiver. And they'd call down, tell you what azimuth. Of course, you had to learn the azimuth. But for me, I was just told to carry ammo because you don't know anything else, you know, until you start picking up on stuff. And
Did anybody have any concern when you got to the battery that you'd never been trained on a 155?
yeah.
So you're gonna learn OJT.
Yep.
So how big were the rounds?
HE weighed 98 pounds. Firecracker weighed, I think, 118, and our assistant gunner weighed 121, I think. We had illumination rounds, Willie Peter, and Hotel Charlie smoke rounds. And that's about basically what we had.
And was the ammunition stored in the?
Yeah, in the bunker.
gun-
Yeah, so many-
area?
Yep.
Okay, so you joined the battery and you stayed there for,
Yeah.
again, what, the LZ that you were on?
It was Fire Base Rockason. It was up in the
Rockason.
mountains.
And what did that fire base consist of?
Well, there was 105 battery, the infantry was around the perimeter, mortars. I don't know how many mortars they'd put out on each fire base, maybe 3, maybe 5, I don't know. But
So there were basically 2 batteries of artillery, the
Yeah.
155s and the 105s, and infantry support
Yep.
and that. And how would you get your ammunition?
oh, they bring it in by a Chinook, dump it, and then you'd bust it open and hump it up the hill. But every night, artillery pulled guard too. We had holes in the side of the hill, and you was responsible. So every night, one guy out of each squad, or one out of each section, went down. Then that was on rotation. But you take it for so many hours, and you covered from.
Each gun crew, what kind of personal weapons did they have? Or were assigned to
Well,
each
everybody
gun?
had a 16, M16, and we had an M79 grenade launcher and an M60 machine gun for every gun.
For each gun section?
Yeah, so we had 6 machine guns and 6 grenade launchers, and everybody had a 16.
Okay, and you, between the battery, each gun section had to supply one person every
Right.
night for perimeter.
Right.
And were those in 2-man positions or
Well,
bigger, or?
One man and one man was in the bunker, and then one man was on the radio for radio watch. And then you rotated your time. This guy'd come out of the bunker, be relieved, and then he'd go to radio watch and see until you got through all 6 of you, and that pretty much took up the whole night. Unless you got a fire mission, then if the guy would have been me that didn't know anything in the bunker, I'd have just stayed there, and they'd have took the fire mission without me, because, you know, But if it had been like the assistant gunner or the gunner that replaced him, so he could stay on guard and the gunner come up.
So even the gunners would pull?
Oh, even the sergeants did, except
okay.
our section chief, he wasn't, he was a staff sergeant, he wouldn't pull any guard, but then Fred Martin come to, I was on number 6, and Fred Martin came into number 6 and he pulled guard just like everybody else.
So if a gunner was out pulling guard, and a fire mission came in, he would have to be relieved to go
Yeah.
back to
Yeah.
do that? Okay. What was the responsibility of the gunner?
Gunning it required setting off the right deflection and quadrant on the gun, and it wouldn't fire. The gunner had the responsibility of not letting that weapon fire until he was set, because he had to be right on the money with his deflection and quadrant numbers, or that round's going to go somewhere else.
Right.
And he'd say ready, and then section chief was usually in the center, because he'd check both guys, even though he didn't, but he did. And then the assistant gunner would be the one to pop it, then go off.
So you had your gun crew, and each gun crew had a section chief?
Yeah, right.
Okay, and how long did you stay on that fire base?
We got off of it in February, end of February.
Okay.
We moved down to Firebase Jack, and the sun was out, and I just loved it because I think the sun was out once on Rockason, and that was on Christmas Day, and we was soaking wet. So we was so freaking wet. We was getting boils on their skin from being so wet, So when we got down on the lowlands, you got to dry out at least, and you got to see the sun. And I still, to this day, I don't like it to rain. Today is just kicking my ass, because I don't like it.
How did the battery move?
We only moved once by truck, called march order. Any other time we'd move by helicopter.
Okay. And,
We had a special sling made. You fold the trails up like this, and a sling, you put it over it, and then the chopper would come in, you put the donut on the hook, and then he takes off, and then there goes your loads, and then you guys usually...
What kind of helicopter would pull the
Chinook
gun?
47, yeah.
So it would just pull the gun, there wouldn't be anything else?
No, we'd always ride on a different one. And then they'd come and they'd just set it down and anywhere they could on the next fire base, and then you had to get it squared away.
Before you moved, how busy were you with fire missions?
Oh, it seemed like one every night. We shot up a lot of things. There's a lot of targets out there. And the grunts would go out and have some probables, and mark it down on the azimuth, and we'd fire them up at night.
So you're shooting a lot of
A lot.
HIs at night?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. H&Is and Delta Tangos. We shot a lot of them.
Right. And how about actual fire missions when when infantry units were engaged with the enemy?
See, we only found out a couple of them, and that's because they called back and told us we did a good job. But there was so many fire missions.
So you could be firing and you didn't really know what it was
We didn't know
for.
who, no.
Okay.
We just knew we had to get on this azimuth and get to jacking them out.
And you used the term Delta Tango, just for the sake of the tape. What does that mean?
I don't know if I remember. I don't know for sure what Delta Tangos, but it was always doing H&Is and Delta Tangos. I don't know.
Defensive target.
All right then, okay.
Yeah, okay, that's and those were basically shot in if a unit was set up
Right.
at night. They would shoot,
Right.
pre-shoot them in, so you could shoot first round HE
Right.
if they had any trouble. Yeah. Okay, so you was there any significant contact on your first fire base?
No, we went. From then on, I got in. It was May 18th. I got nicked in the arm with a piece of shrapnel. It was Buddha's birthday, and we had 24-hour ceasefire for him. Because of your counter. The other Vietnamese guy that's supposed to be what
counterpart?
Yeah, your counterpart, to honor him, These gooks climbed up the hill and fired RPGs in and violated the ceasefire, and I got nicked with a piece of shrapnel, and so much for Booter's birthday.
Was this when you were still on Jack?
No, we was on,
Okay. Okay.
I don't know what fire base was on when that happened.
Okay, but your first fire base, was there any contact with the enemy? I mean,
I don't
directly
remember.
fire,
See, it was raining so hard, they was laying up too.
Okay, so then you went to Jack, you were kind of more in the lowlands.
Yeah.
And how about there? Was your level of activity the same, or?
We shot them up wherever we was at. We'd have 40 rounds between the trails on maybe 5 targets, you know, and they wanted 8 rounds on each target or something, you know, we always shot up. It was,
So business was good from a fire mission standpoint.
Yeah.
But, how about any incoming rounds or attacks or anything?
the only one that
there?
sticks in my mind is one in May.
Okay.
Oh, April, we was on the fire support base Granite. That was a bad one, and the Gooks came wanting to take the whole base, and it was quite a mess for all night. And then the next morning when the sun came up, they had broke contact, and there was a lot of dead Vietnamese around, and I think 9 Americans were killed on that
Okay.
little fire
So
base.
when you would go to these fire bases, would you be the only artillery unit, or would there also be the 105 battery?
Usually the 105s was at the same one we was at.
So it was.
Most of the time, yeah.
Okay. So in Granite, what happened? Did they breach the perimeter?
Yeah, they got through the wire in some places, and they was like, the story is that they captured a wounded one who was still alive, and they interrogated him. There's supposed to be 400 Gooks coming at us, 4 teams of 100 in each team, and we had called in ARA and Cobras, and everybody was firing. It was quite a mess there for all night.
Were your guns firing
My
at
gun-
self-defense targets and that?
My gun was shooting contact illumination,
Okay.
and we shot them all, and there was 3 of us, and I remember one other but me, and we'd the cutting powder, setting time and shooting, and we run out of illumination rounds, so we got some off the other guns, and then all of a sudden Snoopy, the flare ship, showed up on site, so we end the mission on illumination, you know, and then he lit up the area with his flares, and that really lights up the area. Gee, he looked nice.
And so you weren't shooting illumination, then what were you doing?
You went on the line, you know, around the back to your defensive bunker, and because they was around.
So you had to man the perimeter.
Right.
You weren't shooting any.
Right.
Were you shooting any self-defense targets with the howitzers?
No.
Or no.
No,
Okay.
no, my gun was the only one that was illumination, and everybody else was on defense with your rifle, machine gun, and grenade launcher, you
Okay.
know, from each crew.
Okay. But were the artillery then shooting as well, or?
I can't remember, I don't know, I don't remember.
Oh, okay. And that was at Grant,
Yeah,
and that was night. And then you said on May 18th you were wounded.
yeah, got a little piece in my elbow.
And what fire base was this on?
I don't know. I can't remember what one it was on. But we left that one to go to Ripcord. So I don't know where it was at.
So how serious was the wound?
It was TT. It wasn't very serious, but medic said that you're going in. So I went in the next morning, you know, and me and my buddy, I borrowed his knife and I dug on it that night, you know. And I got it. I know I got it out because I couldn't find any when I got to the hospital. And there was a major down there that worked on me, and I was just, you know, stinking. You know, his clothes was rotted, you know, and he asked me how long I'd been out on the fire bases, and I told him coming country in November, and he says, well, how about you taking these 5 other walking wounded to Cameron Bay for 5 days? I said, I can do that. So I got on an Air Force airplane, and he said, all you gotta do is turn these papers in when you get there. And so I turned them papers in and disappeared, ghosted up, you know, and just relaxed for 5 days.
So the aid station that you went to off the fire base, was that at Camp Eagle or was
Yeah.
that up at
No,
Evans?
I think that was at Fubai, actually.
Fubai, okay.
Yeah.
So then you got a
Then
a convalescent leave,
Right,
if you will,
yeah.
for 5 days. So what did you do in Cameron Bay for 5 days?
We body surfed the salt water. If you go out and you get real rigid, you know, and it just take you up and down like this, and I'd never a big beer drinker at that time. We'd drink some beers, and they had outdoor movies, you know, and you ate 3 hot meals a day, and it was nice.
Well, when you're on a fire basis, what kind of rations did you have?
I would get a hot meal in once in a while, and then the rest of it was sea rations.
Okay.
But sometimes we get a hot meal.
Okay. Was, on these fire bases, was there any mess facilities or?
No,
they
bring it
come
all,
in from
brought it
someplace
all,
else?
yeah.
Okay, so now you're in country about 6 months. Did you go on R&R?
When I got off Ripcord, the
Okay,
day
so-
after,
After Ripcord, okay.
my R&R come up. In fact, a friend of mine told me that my allocation had come down. I think that was where they said that your name's up for R&R July 26th, I think. And we got off the 23rd.
Okay.
Bummed around a couple days and headed out.
So you came back from Cameron Bay, you rejoined, was the battery at the same place or did you have to go somewhere else?
Man, I think it had landed on Ripcord in June, first part of June. I think it was either back on the one or on Ripcord, because we was on Ripcord all of June and nothing.
Did you join the battery on Ripcord or did you move to Ripcord with the battery?
I joined them because the battery was already gone somewhere.
Okay,
But what fire base? I'm
don't know
almost
where you
sure
were.
it was Ripcord.
but after Cameron Bay, when you
Yeah,
got back,
I rejoined the
you
battery.
were on Ripcord?
Yeah,
Okay.
and we, you know, normal shooting to a lot of shooting on Ripcord day and night and day and night and day and night. And then the 1st of July, there was a lot of stuff came back in, and it just kept coming back
Okay,
in.
on Ripcord, did you have, well, up to this time, could you approximate how many rounds your tube would shoot out every day, or,
No, several missions we had 100 rounds, and I think we only kept 50 on hand, and then you borrowed 50 from the next gun, and then when the ammo came in, you humped your 50, and then you humped his 50
okay.
and paid him back. But we shot. There's a picture on the back of that book, and there's probably 20 rounds all fused up on them pallets. So, and we was the end of mission, stay jacked up there, you know. So it could very, very, very seldom you'd get less than 10 or 15. It was always a lot of rounds to shoot.
So you'd normally just keep 50 rounds by each gun?
Yeah, in each bunker. Yeah.
Each ammo,
Yeah.
ammo bunker, which,
Mhm.
when you got to a new fire base, who had to build the bunkers?
We did. We had to build everything. Yeah.
And could you describe the bunker?
Well, we used the 105 ammo boxes, filled them with dirt, and put them 2 or 3 high, 2 rows. Then they had like a culvert band, and put it in there and then sandbagged that and left the opening, closed one opening, put that against the bank or whatever, you could close it off, and then just had one opening where you could reach in and ground them. All the rounds was standing up. So, and we had like 5 different kinds of ammo we could shoot, and we all, they all had a bunker.
Were those all mixed into the 50, or was that in
No,
addition?
that was in addition.
So you had 50 HE rounds,
Yeah.
basically, and then you had so many
Yeah.
illuminations, smoke,
Mhm.
whatever.
Firecracker.
Was there a beehive for the 155?
Fred Martin and I was talking about it. They did make a beehive, I guess. I didn't know about it, but see, we couldn't get Traverse down enough to shoot it
Yeah,
for
okay.
like the 10 Deuce could.
Yeah.
They could lay right down, but we couldn't do that. So,
Okay, so you
we had
didn't,
the firecracker round.
yeah, you guys didn't have to hump the beehive then?
No,
Yeah,
no.
Okay. Okay. So then you get to Ripcord. What's your impressions when you got to Ripcord?
Actually, just another fire base. I didn't know for sure where we was at. of course, I didn't know for sure on any of them, and I guess it didn't matter, I wasn't going anywhere. You know, it wasn't like I had a date and I had to get off there to go somewhere. But we just shot and shot and shot, and then, you know, July 1st, we started getting it back, and it just got more intense and more intense, and pretty soon, you know, a lot of stuff happened. And we was shooting for the other guy, for the grunts on the surrounding hills, and if we could, 1 Deuce battery could really shoot for them because they could lower their tube, but we could shoot too, but not as much as they did, and we shot a lot of targets for them.
In terms of like engaging direct fire? Or?
Yeah, 1 Deuce did, yeah,
Okay.
and flechette rounds and HEs, and I mean, just, you know, I'm sure there's a really good picture of that Captain Rich. He has the first calf patch on his arm. He was shooting direct fire off of, I don't know the number of the hills, either 1,000 or 898. I don't know what the numbers were. I didn't know the numbers correlated with the height of the hill either.
Yeah,
So,
on the topographical maps, that's what
yeah,
they call that hill.
I mean,
902 or
yeah. It only took me
1035 or
42 years to figure that
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
Quick, ain't I? Yeah.
Okay, well, did you shoot many high angle?
Yeah,
high
yeah.
angle?
Sometimes we'd charge 7 high angle, and you had to dig a hole because the breech would come clear back out of the battery,
Yeah,
you know, and then it'd just go down and you dig this hole so it could go, and then it'd go back up, you know, and you have to crank the tube all the way down to load it again.
so you were able to get some rounds for the
Yeah,
grunts
low
on
charge,
a-
yeah.
on a reverse
Yeah,
slope
we
from
shot
that,
high
yeah.
angle, yeah.
That's cool, that's great. So you were, whoops, I just, oh, good, worse. There we go. Okay, so you got the Ripcord, just another fire base. How would you get your ammo in?
Oh, only by helicopter.
By
There's no
helicopter.
roads there.
And would they drop it at, where would they drop it at? Close to the tubes or?
As close as they could.
Okay,
It was really a rocky hill, and they had one designated area that was a little better than most, but they'd drop it wherever they could. And through all July, they took incoming rounds in their choppers bringing this in. So if they misdropped a little ways, it's because they had to. You know, they had to dump their load, because I mean, it's just
because they were taking
because they're
fire
taking
or
incoming
whatever.
fire, yeah.
Okay. And then you would, wherever they dropped the ammo.
We'd go
then,
pick it up.
How did that process work? Did each gun assign so many
Yeah.
guys to do it? Because,
Every gun humped ammo. Every guy on number 6 humped ammo. It would be split up. Maybe 6 was supposed to get 80 rounds. Well, you divided that by 6, and every guy took that amount.
okay.
And then you come back and got your powder, and then you come back and got the trash, and got the trash, throw it in the trash area, or take it back to help build the bunkers out of pallets and boxes and stuff like that.
What would you do with your excess powder? Like if you had a fire mission for
You
charge 4?
Clean that up every day, every morning, all the time. If you're shooting all night and it build up, then you cleaned it up and you took it and you threw it in the trash dump. You got it clear away. Or if there was a lull in shooting, like you get in the mission stage act up, then somebody's assigned to get that powder out of the pit and take it off and go down to the trash dump and throw it in the trash dump.
I just throw it in the trash dump, they wouldn't burn it or anything?
Oh, it'd burn up because the trash dump was on fire.
Oh, okay.
I mean, trash dump drawed mortar rounds out the yin yang. In fact, that's where I got hit my second time was at the freaking trash dump.
Okay.
Me and the
Getting rid of powder or?
getting rid of it. We'd shot all night, and me and this, I think his name was Bob Seaman. He took shrapnel in the arms, and I did too. And I thought he was dead because all I could see was his feet around the rocks, you know. And but he wasn't. He was all right. But that's what you did with the ammo or the powder.
Okay.
So you didn't want to fire, which is exactly what happened to the 105 battery. They was up on Ripcord was kind of a 2-tier thing. We was down here, and the 105s and all the FDC and the infantry talk was up here, and the main pad was up here. This is where they wanted all the big boys were, and this is where all the little boys were. See, and shit hook come in and Gook stitched it with a 51 and dropped it out of the sky it had a load of ammo underneath it, and it caught fire and took out all 6 105s.
Okay. let me get into that just a little later. So you get to Ripcord around the 1st of June, and as far as you know, it's just another fire base.
Yeah.
And you're as busy as you normally would have been on other things, or were you busier, or?
I think it was just as busy.
Okay.
I mean, we was always busy, you know.
So then, when did you notice things starting to change?
1st of July,
1st of
we
July?
got incoming rounds. 4th of July, the 1st and the 4th really sticks out in my mind. It was the 4th of July. That night, it was fireworks everywhere in the world, but here, you know, watching the fireworks of the 4th of July. And there was fireworks off of Ripcord. It was lit up, tremendous. It was really, and I thought, well, this is the best fireworks I've ever seen, you know. And it just got worse and worse and worse from then. But the 1st and the 4th is 2 days that stood out in my mind until later on.
Okay, when you say fireworks, a lot of incoming?
And incoming and outgoing, the flash, you know, and it just, wow, you can't describe it. It was just something.
What kind of incoming were you getting?
A lot of mortars, recordless rifle. I don't know if it was too far away for RPGs, but a lot of mortar rounds.
Did any rounds land into your battery area?
Later on, they did an upset number 4 gun. Just blew it off its pedestal, and the barrel was on the ground, and the guys had to get and right it back up so you could shoot it. I mean, a lot of rounds came everywhere. They'd just mortar the hell out of the top of the hill, and then they'd back off, and then they'd just mortar the hell out of us, and then they'd switch off. I mean, it was just constant. It was constant mortar rounds. Everything was, it was just a lot of shit.
Now, while you were on Ripcord, would you also have to pull perimeter?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so and was the crewing still at that 6th level? Or
Yep.
was it, okay.
But then it started, eventually all 6 guys in my gun section, except me and another guy, 4 guys out of the 6 got medevaced out. Our gun got hit out of action, and then me and this other kid, Bill Mace, we didn't have no howitzer, so I went and helped on other things to do.
Okay, so when did your gun get disabled?
Well, I don't know the exact day, but the day.
This was after July 1st or 4th?
Yeah, it was towards the
Okay.
tail end of July. We had lost 2 guys. Yogi was killed. He was our Carmo sergeant, and Buck Miller was killed. And then Fred Martin, my chief, my section chief, was wounded real bad. And then I got the section because that's one in line was corporal. And then out of that, they just started, I mean, the incoming was just, it was everywhere. I mean, you couldn't, it even hit guys that was in hooches, you know, for cover. There's just too much of it.
Just the volume of the
Yeah.
incoming was that,
Yeah.
so they were basically wearing down your strength
Oh,
by,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
with their indirect fire.
Yeah. You know, and a lot of times there wasn't a lot of food and there wasn't a lot of water. And it's July, you know, it's probably in the 90s anyway. I mean, it's hot, and you're thirsty, and you're hungry, and you're half pissed off, and it just ain't nothing really going too good, you know. And it just all wore on you after a while. Tempers would get short.
How much sleep would you average during that period of time?
If you could grab a cat nap, you know, 20 minutes or maybe 30 minutes, you was really doing a good job. Once in a while, I mean, there wasn't time to sleep unless you just absolutely fell asleep where you're standing. But I mean, you had things to do. You know, we didn't have a shower for 23 days. I was in the same clothes for 23 days. So I kind of smelled when I finally got off of there. But I mean, what are you gonna do?
So, was your gun hit before or after you were hit the second time when you were disposing of that powder?
After.
Okay, after. So, talk to me about the situation where you got hit the second time. You were going down to dispose of the powder
And, you know, like mortar rounds came out, I had me come in the trash dump and some shit flew out of the trash dump and just peppered me in the arms. You know, I picked out a lot of it, and Doc Savoy picked out a lot of it. It wasn't life-threatening, so he just put some methylate on it or iodine or something, you know, because you get a sore and is really worried about infection, you know, so he just dabbled it on. But so I didn't know, I mean, you wouldn't go anywhere, not for that.
Okay, so you weren't medevac, you're just
No, I
treated,
just
treated
stayed.
right on Ripcord.
Yeah,
And
Doc's treated me right there.
were you given any shots or anything
No.
to prevent infection? No? Okay.
Doc was so busy. Him and Doc Harris, the Doc Savoy, and he passed away a couple years ago.
Now, was
Jesus,
this your battery
he
medic?
was our battery medic. He was so busy. He
Was there
so
any
good.
other medical facilities on Ripcord other than like the battery medics and that kind of thing?
No, I don't think for our outfit,
Okay.
you know. Maybe the mortars, I don't know what the 105s did, but us, if you got injured, you went to Doc Savoy,
Okay.
and he either fixed you up or sent you out.
Okay, so towards the end, you said your gun was hit and disabled.
Yeah, and our chief of smoke, Sergeant First Class Beal, was just giving me an ass chewing like you wouldn't believe over preventive maintenance. How in the hell am I going to prevent a mortar round,
They were about an hour.
the shrapnel from a mortar round? How am I going to prevent that? So I was taking it because
Pause right there.
the darn took it. I mean, there wasn't much I could say to an E7, and all of a sudden, the earth just.
So this was happening around when the E7 was, the chief of
Yeah.
smoke was giving you a hard time
Yeah.
with preventive maintenance and an incoming round.
Mortar rounds was dropping everywhere, you know, and this big one come in and it just, killed Lieutenant Kelsu and David Johnson. And the concussion from it knocked me flat on my back. And I must have hit my head on the ground because I didn't know where everything was quite yet, you know. And when I got up, they had pulled LT out of the bunker that he was in, and he was dead. And I looked over there, and there was smoke and dirt, and you could smell cordite, you know. And there lay Big John. And then I heard this kind of a real faint sound, and it was calling my name. So it was smoke. He had got hit. And I picked him up and ran him up to the aid station. He had shrapnel in his legs and he couldn't walk very good. So I got him up there and come back down. And boy, that day really sucked.
Yeah.
We was really sliding down shit hill quick. Because our captain had already been medevaced out with a neck wound. LT's laying there dead. Chief of Smoke's wounded. You know, it was shit. But we did what we could and stayed together.
Now, was your gun destroyed?
Yeah, it wasn't working.
It was inoperative.
So I and my men were, most of them was medevaced out, so I just went and helped carry wounded went up to the aid station. Doc Savoy was still up there, and I told him my situation, and he said, well, hang around here, and you know, we're getting an awful lot of wounded in here. And so I said, oh, okay, I can do that. I can carry a litter, you know, part of a litter, the whole thing, it don't matter. But we put several people in a helicopter.
Okay. Then you got the Bronze Star with the V. Was that for that action or?
Yeah, I don't know. They wrote up some citation that I remember some of it. And,
Okay.
They just give me,
It was
they
around
issued
around that same
yeah,
period of
from,
time.
19th of July to 23rd.
Okay, yeah. Now, I want to backtrack just a little bit because I got the timing a little mixed up, but tell me about the Chinook crash.
They're bringing it as normal, Chinook's bringing in ammo, and it took a lot of hits from a 51 caliber, and it went down, and when it come down, it come right down on the load of ammo, right in the 105's battery. Of course, it caught fire, and the fuel leaked out, and it just went everywhere, and the fire went everywhere, and it destroyed all 6 guns. And the guys was going over the hill, and some of them run down and got in our bunkers. You know, I mean, it was bad. And they had, within one picture later, they got one standing straight up in the air, and I think they said it was a spiked howitzer, that thermite grenade, because it was toast, so they wanted to make sure, but no, that, and then the gooks really put it on our part of the hill. You know, they'd gotten a freebie here by shooting a helicopter down, because the 105 shot the shit out of things. They was so quick. They was good. They really were good. And so they didn't have no guns, so, you know, we were slower. We was still damn good, but slower. And so they just started pouring the shit to us, and it was a mess.
Okay, so did the battery personnel from the 105s, they came down and they basically,
That's
were
what
your battery now, right?
Yeah, but no one ever come to 6, so I don't know if they came to other gun batteries, gun sections.
Okay.
That could have been, but none come to 6.
Okay.
So I don't know.
And this was before your gun got hit.
Right.
So it was.
Right.
You were pretty much up to
Right.
whatever full strength was at that time, you were there, okay. Okay, so, now after your gun was disabled and, that occurred, you helped in the aid station.
Yeah.
Then what did you do there?
I don't know, like that might have been the 22nd, and then the night of the 22nd, there was a captain that come down, and I was talking to him, and he said we expect to be overrun tonight, so get everybody, keep them up, you know. And we emptied ASP bunker, ammo supply point bunker, for rounds, you know, for small ammunition and stuff, but it never came. And then the next morning, we was getting off.
Okay, so then the next morning
23rd.
you were extracted
Yeah,
out.
it was
Okay.
extracted out, yeah. And the next morning, me and I remember 2 other guys was in this ASP, and all you could do was just get under something for cover.
Yeah, some
And,
overhead cover, right?
And somebody hollered in the ASP, they need somebody down on the lower pad. And the lower pad was down on the bottom side of where our guns were. So I went down there. Then I was to direct the guys to get off of the lower pad. You know, whoever come down there. And in come this Huey. And I started to told the guys to get up, you know, it was in holes with rocks around them, you know. And I told them, so get ready, you know, we're going to catch this bird and get out of here. And the door gunner seen me, and he waved me off, and I thought, well, what are we doing, you know, and he's going like this. And touched down, and Lieutenant Colonel Lucas, who I didn't know, he's the king of the hill. I didn't know him at that point. And and this other guy was a Major Sanders or Tanner or something. I didn't know him either. But they got off, and they walked right by where I was at. I didn't know what to do. I seen Lieutenant Colonel rank. I didn't know what to do. So I kind of half-assed give him a salute, you know. And he asked me some questions, and I told him, and he said, you guys doing a hell of a job. Him and this other guy, this major, walked up to the hill, and then I learned later that they were killed.
They were killed there, yeah.
Or the major was killed outright, and the lieutenant colonel died off the helicopter at the hospital or something. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe he was, I mean, he's just walking out there like he's going to walk across the street to get a soda, you know.
And incoming, coming in. the
Oh
whole
yeah,
time.
I mean, there's everything everywhere, you know, and I thought, and man, he was so clean. You know, I seen the spit shine boots. Jeez, God, I haven't ever seen nothing like that, you know. And he had authority, man. I said, holy shit.
Okay.
And then years later, you know, I found out he was awarded the Medal of Honor. I thought I talked to that guy.
Yeah.
And he just went right up to the hill and talked to some guys. He said something about, where's the infantry talk? And I think they moved it to our old FDC. I don't know, but I told him something. I was hoping that was right, you know, because I didn't actually want him to come back down and chew my ass, you know.
Yeah.
But I thought, holy cow, you don't know.
Yeah. So were you extracted later that day then, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think a friend of mine that was on one of the last birds off the top of the hill, he said he looked over, just looking over the hill before he left, and he seen me getting on the chopper on the lower hill. And he said, I knew you was on the chopper.
Well, you got on a Huey.
Yeah.
And was it a hairy ride out, or could you describe the ride, or?
I was laying down. We just went,
Okay.
you know. I mean, the chopper pilot had it in road gear, because man, we just took off.
And that was in July, towards the end of
23rd of July,
23rd of July. And where did you go from Ripcord then?
I think I ended up at Camp Evans, because I didn't recognize the base.
Okay.
And went into somebody that seemed to have more, and knew more about things, and he said, we'll get you a ride to Camp Eagle. I said, okay. So it must have been Camp Evans that we arrived at. And then by this time, it was getting dark. So then we went to Eagle.
Okay, so you got to Eagle, and then you rejoined your battery there? Or?
They had a big party, had some Korean go-go dancers, was frying steaks, had ice cold beer, and it was a big party. And I wasn't even interested in the steak, and I was freaking hungry for it. I grabbed a couple beers, and me and Randy Burdette and somebody else, we just went up to the battery area and sat on some sandbags, and that's where we stayed till next morning. Just laid back on that, you know. Didn't even want to get drunk. There was just too much to try to figure out.
Okay, so obviously you were emotionally and physically exhausted.
Yeah, physically, yeah. Yeah.
So then your battery reorganized on Eagle then?
You had a ceremony for the 4 guys that got killed in the battery area, and then the guns were going out again, and Dawson, the company clerk, told me that I only had like a day or 2 days before R&R started, and he said, you just hang around here, just disappear. And so I did, and then I took off on R&R.
Okay, where did you go on R&R?
Sydney, Australia.
Sydney. What did you think of Australia?
It took a while to figure out how to walk on the concrete sidewalks.
Yeah.
I thought I was losing my mind, you know. It was too even, you know. It was hard to do, you know. But I adjusted pretty quick, and I knocked on this door of the shop, and this older woman was in there and served breakfast and that, and I ordered a great big pizza and a pitcher of milk. And I sat there and ate that whole thing, and drank the whole milk all by myself. And you go bar hopping and stuff, you know. And the Texas Tavern was a real nice place. The guy that run it had been the nom and got out and went to Australia, and he owned it, you know, and that's where I ran into one of the chopper pilots that pulled us off a ripcord.
Oh, okay.
You know.
Okay, so you have your R&R. How difficult was it to go back to Vietnam?
Actually, the last couple days of R&R, I was really getting bored. I wanted to go back, and that is retarded to think that. But I was wanting back. I was wanting back with a guy I wanted back. And so I got back, and I don't know. And when I got back home from Nam, I was so glad to get home, but I wanted back there too. I mean, that don't make sense. But that feeling, it took a long time for that to leave.
Well, that relationship that you had with everybody,
Yeah.
and it's
I didn't
very
have nothing to
understandable.
do in Sydney. I mean, how many times can you get drunk? You know, I mean, but it was great. It really was. And so we got back, and then, you know, just started working on finishing the tour, and it never did get as involved as it did on Ripcord.
So the battery basically just rotated, was still rotating between
Yeah, we jumped
various fire bases.
Yeah, we jumped a few fire bases, and then see, I do to rotate out November 6th of 70, because that's when I come in November 6th of 69, and I'd extended my tour 75 days to get a 6-month early out of the Army. And in fact, the day after we got off Ripcord, Dawson chased me down and says, "Renner, I don't suppose you want to sign this?" I said, "What's that?" And he says, "It's your extension papers." I said, "Yeah, give them to me, I'll sign them." So I signed them right then, and then I got through there, and then November was a real tough month, and December, the monsoons kicking your ass, you know, soaking wet, and here we go again. You know, I've been through that last year, and then all of a sudden, they said that the captain said, "Get your stuff together, and you got 10 minutes from an incoming helicopter here to be on it." So I jumped on it and went back to Camp Eagle and started processing out. It was just that quick. I didn't have to do the full 75 days, but I did, I don't know, 30 or 40 of them, you know. So otherwise it'd have been January or February of 71,
Okay.
but they gave me a drop. And I was talking drops, you know, guys in country 8 months, you know, was getting drops. And I got thinking, God, I wonder if I could be eligible for one of them, but probably not since I extended, you know, but I was.
Yeah, well, it was good, yeah. Okay, so how did you get back to the States? Where did you left Camp Eagle? Where did you go?
We stopped in Japan for some reason, and I bought a Jap camera for like $80, 35 millimeter Canon with all accessories. And then we landed at Fort Lewis, Washington, and started processing out there. And then and this was like the 21st of December, and then we was out. The lieutenant told us how great the job we did in the military, blah 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 blah, and me and another guy headed up to Seattle Tacoma Air Terminal, and was catch his first flight I could to anywhere close to Des Moines, and I got home 22nd of December 1970.
Which your family was glad to see you for Christmas.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you got back, what did you do?
Well, it was winter, and I couldn't go outside and play, you know. I didn't have a car, I didn't have a job, but I wasn't really looking for one, and I just kind of bummed around and didn't do a whole lot of anything, you know. And springtime came, and I found some construction work, and one thing led to another, and you know, just kind of eased back into society. But I was not welcomed home by a lot of people, I found out later. And job-wise, put in application, and almost all of them veteran. You fill it out. So I'd fill it out, Vietnam veteran. Sorry, dude, that job's been fulfilled, you know. Thanks for coming in. So this happened so many times, so then I thought I'll leave it out. they'd take it, let me run this by the boss, come back and says, you left one out here. You a veteran? Well, yeah. You know, I'm not gonna lie to you. Hell yes, I'm a veteran, and I'm a vet. Man, we just can't use you. I thought, you rotten bastard. Now this was some pretty big, well, one was the pipeline of America. I mean, they was noted for hiring vets, but evidently not non-vets. So just worked here and there and just stayed in construction.
Is that what you did then for your career?
Yeah.
Construction?
Yeah, still do it, yeah.
You work for yourself? Or
Yeah, self-employed with our, Lauren, we got twin boys, Andy and Aaron, and they jump in as the three of us, and they usually smoke my ass every day, but that's all right. But it's a lot of fun. And we got a daughter, and she's got a young son that's 12, and she works at the X-ray technician at the VA hospital in Iowa City, Iowa.
Okay.
She does a one hell of a good job.
Yeah. How far is Iowa City from?
About an hour.
About an hour, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Jerry really takes care of the vets.
That's good. That's good.
I'm so proud of her.
As you look back over Vietnam, what positive thing do you think you took out of the experience, if anything?
It taught me. It taught me to be me. I am me because of Vietnam. I ain't nobody else. It was so good to draw off of that, to become strong and make right decisions and don't back down from nobody and be a man from that experience. You know, I don't know what I'd have been if I hadn't went to Nam. I don't know. If I'd have pulled time in Germany, I don't know what I'd have done. But it definitely defined my whole life as a 19-year-old sees it, because I didn't know anything else. And they had a little tavern. Well, they had several in town, and I went down one night and sat there by myself, and some college kids come in that was in my class, a 68, and they was home on Christmas break and something, and they was pimping and gigging and everything, you know, what'd you do in Nam? You know, tell us. You know, I didn't want to go that way. Finally, after, I said, you really want to hear about Nam? So I just give them a real short version. They all left. You know, the girls even, they all left. I thought, what the hell, you wanted to hear about it? So sat here and listened to it. But they all disappeared. They didn't want to hear about it.
No.
I thought, that's all right. So it took a long time before I told anybody about anything.
Were you involved in any veterans groups over the years? Or?
My dad was wanting to join the VFW, and he said, would you join with me? I said, okay, me and you'll join together. We went out, paid our money, signed him up. You know, Dad was a World War II vet. A lot of hurrahs, a lot of everything, you know. Welcomed right in. I guess we'll take him, your kid with him, you know. And it was a beer drinking, card playing deal. So one time he was wanting a commander of the VFW. I said, I'll try it for a year, you know. So they said, that's fine, you know. So it was just into that year, and the American Legion sat here at a table, right like this, and the VFW sat here, and we just shared the same meeting hall in the same time frame, you know. I was sitting there getting my papers ready to go, and this guy walked in front of me, and I sensed him more than I had seen anything. I looked up, and he says, well, I'll tell you one thing, you little son of a bitch, at least we would a war. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. I looked over, and I really liked this guy. I said, you're going to run it tonight. And I walked out there, and I never went back.
Never went back.
Never found out who that guy was. If anybody would have touched me on my way out, I'd have been in jail. I couldn't believe he'd say some shit like that.
Yeah, unfortunately, our generation faced those kinds of things. Although, if it's any solace to you, I know a World War II guy, and he got the same reaction when he joined the VFW from the World War I guys.
Kidding.
No kidding. It's the exact same thing. You young kids, you don't want to do, you know, and that kind of thing. And just amazing. But, well, it's like to thank you for sharing with us. And Mike, it's been a distinct pleasure for me to listen to your story. And I thank you, you know, sincerely and tremendously. And thanks for your service.